Alright, coming up next is Devil May Cry. I know that some fans of Devil May Cry don't like the new Dante. Hell, I was a bit hesitant before I played the game, but once I did play it, I have to say, it was actually a pretty fun game. Dante was also not as bad as people say he was. Most of his plight I could sympathize with. I like how he tells off that ugly fucking monster before the boss fight with him. But as for the gameplay itself, it has the hack and slash gameplay that is done realistically well, with many types of fucking enemies. It also has 2 powers that can help you get to other places when defeating certain enemies. One that has a red symbol and a light blue symbol. You really need to know which one to use at certain times, which can make for very intricate controls. You do press a lot of buttons, but in a very specific way. I also think that a good amount of the boss fights are pretty fucking fun as well. One more thing, I love the ending and even the end credits music. It's good. Alright, coming up next is Fear. What do I like about Fear? Well, it has good gameplay and really good level design. The fictitious assault rifles are fucking fun to use when you have enough ammo. There are also various types of enemies. There are the replica soldiers with the masks, and the Armacham forces, and the flying robots, which are probably the most difficult to take down, the giant armor robots. You can also use reflex time whenever you need to. It is very useful at certain times. I also really like going through the office buildings and parking lots. It is really fucking cool that a lot of the levels take place in places like that. This game focuses a lot more on the gameplay rather than the story. There are only a few cutscenes in the entire game, but there are certain parts of the levels where you go through flashbacks. Some of the flashbacks have really fucking nice imagery and give you an insight into your character's dark and really fucking strange past. This might be one of the greatest FPS games of the mid-2000s. Alright, coming up next is Soldier of Fortune Payback. I know a lot of people consider this game weaker than the other Soldier of Fortune games, but hey, I played it and I had a lot of fucking fun with it. I like that it has the elements of the other Soldier of Fortune games, like the mission-based structure and multiple levels with missions and the gore. Hell, it even implemented the weapon selection menu from Soldier of Fortune Double Helix. It mixes in elements with more modern FPS games, like a symbol for where you need to go and aim down sights. You don't always have to use aim down sights, but you can if you want to. There are a surprising amount of times where you can blow shit up too. Sure, John Mullins is not in the game. The new guy is Thomas Mason, and he's good, but is he as good as John Mullins? That's hard to say. John Mullins is not as good of a character as Shadow the Hedgehog or even Marcus Phoenix to begin with. Both these characters have similarities and differences and can be fun to play as, which is all that really matters in the end. Most of the levels are fucking fun to play, including some of the desert, in the jungle, and even in a brothel. Even the final level was pretty goddamn nice. The only problem I do have with the game is that it is way too short. But what I experienced in that time was pretty fucking good. Alright, coming up next is God of War. This is the quintessential hack and slash video game. It has lots of enemies to slice the fuck out of, and a pretty good variety of them, as well as lots of puzzles to solve, to the point where you could play the game for either of these and be satisfied. My favorite weapons are the Blades of Chaos, though they almost require an upgrade to use in later levels, and the Blade of Artemis, which you get later in the game. Both of these are fucking fun to use. Also, the gore adds so much more to the game, and there is so much of it. The bosses are massive and well designed, all things considered. But I really like the design of the Rings of Pandora. It is a hallway that goes around and has secret areas to go to that lead to certain levels. It really feels like a place that could exist and adds a mature feel to the game. This game actually made me appreciate QuickTime events. To me, they're actually pretty fucking simple. All you do is press which button it tells you to. Once you memorize where each button is, it can be really easy. Hell, the sex minigame is basically a QuickTime event. One that was fun to play. I'll be honest, my cock got hard during it. But I kept both hands on the controller, if you know what I mean. I also think that it has an amazing fucking ending. It was genuinely satisfying and even spoke to me. God of War is a great game. Alright, coming up next is God of War 2. Now you may be wondering, how are you able to play God of War and God of War 2? Well, I have this God of War saga that includes all 3 games and even the spin-offs like Chains of Olympus and Ghosts of Sparta, but whatever. About God of War 2. This game is just as good, if not better, than the original God of War. The crazy and gory hack and slash gameplay, weapons, and puzzles all return from the original and are just as fucking fun to use. I also really like how in God of War 2 there's a gauge that fills up when you kill enemies, and when it's full, you enter a super form that is pure game-breaking destruction. It is fucking glorious, and would have been really useful in some parts of the original game. But I think the story is also very thought-provoking. It makes a very strong point about how terrible the Greek gods really are. In the game, Zeus basically burns down Sparta only really because he was so mistrustful of Kratos, even though when he became a god, he didn't really do anything at all. I'm serious. Also, if you look at the actual Greek mythology, Zeus's actions are arguably much, much worse than anything Kratos has done. I mean, he raped women while he was still married. The worst thing about Kratos is the fact that he kills some innocent people and has major anger issues. But even then, I don't blame him entirely for either of them. As for the former, he only really does it when he comes across systems that require someone getting killed in order to pass. Or that's usually when that happens. Kratos didn't make those systems. The gods did, because they're fucking barbaric. As for the latter, considering Kratos is getting fucked over by the gods consistently, and that his home was destroyed, his angry outbursts are not much of an overreaction. Honestly, when you look at the irrational manipulative behavior by the gods in this game and the mythology, you'll want Kratos to burn Olympus to the ground. The gods were framed as fucking heroes, but they were really unbelievable scumbags. Kratos might as well be the hero of the game. That is why this game fucking speaks to me so much. Alright, coming up next is The Punisher. Despite the fact that this is a Marvel Comics game, it is really fucking hardcore. The Punisher is probably the closest thing to a superhero that I like. So playing as him is going to be a fucking blast for me. Even ignoring that, it is a legitimately fun game. Fans of Marvel will enjoy the appearances by Black Widow and Nick Fury, and cameos by Iron Man and Matt Murdock, who is the Punisher's lawyer. But the people who are strictly gamers, like me, will enjoy the shoot-'em-up gameplay with many types of weapons. The levels are not just restricted to places in the city, but some of them take place in jungle bases that are in different parts of the world. You can occasionally blow shit up, which is nice. I like that the framing device in black is not done in the same way as that game did it. Not every level's opening cutscene cuts back to the Punisher telling the story to the attorneys. Also, some bastards attack the facility that the Punisher and the attorneys are in toward the end of the game, and there are a few levels that deal with that. It also has some well-designed bosses that can be challenging, but you will still have motivation to defeat them. I also like the music that in the end credits. It was really fucking cool. While this game is not always easy to play, and not all the levels are great, it is still a fun game that I would not mind playing again. Alright, coming up next is Wanted Weapons of Fate. This game is a continuation of that movie Wanted, which was an alright movie, but Weapons of Fate is actually pretty fun. It has really fucking great TPS gameplay. But what really makes the gameplay stand out is you have the ability to curve the bullet. In other words, you can shoot enemies when they are not visible, well, if you move your trajectory correctly. The system works so fucking well. I also like that it incorporates the vulgar dialogue within. I also like how the game incorporates some of the vulgar dialogue within itself. I mean, the first level is literally called Clusterfuck. There are also some pretty well-written quotes in the game too. If you have not played Wanted Weapons of Fate, go ahead and play it. You might actually enjoy it. But I know for a damn fact that I did. Alright, coming up next is Spartan Total Warrior. Yeah, this game is kind of a God of War clone, but I don't give a shit. It is a fun and pretty well-designed game. It has loads of fucking Romans and other enemies to slash the fuck out of with your sword. There are even some times where the objective is to blow certain things up, which is a goddamn nice touch. The levels are also pretty extended, which is really nice, and there's a lot of them, which makes it even fucking better. Admittedly, the game gets really hard in the later levels, but never to the point where the game handicaps you. I also like the mature feel that the game has. This game made me fucking love the Spartans. Alright, coming up next is XBlades. When I first played the game, I had a little bit of a hard time with the controls, but as I kept playing, I got used to it. I even really got into slashing up the fucking monsters that come your way. I actually enjoyed this game more than the drastically different sequel, Blades of Time. Sure, in XBlades there were infinitely respawning enemies, which did get pretty goddamn annoying, but I'll take that over the frustrating puzzles in the sequel. I also think the choice of having 25 or so levels instead of 11 very long levels was a fucking smart choice. Even as someone who doesn't care for graphics, I will say the graphics are fucking gorgeous, but not nearly as gorgeous as Ayumi herself. Honestly, I preferred her in XBlades. She has a much more fun and sassy personality, which is fucking amazing. Her fascination with treasure is interesting too. Not to mention she is hot as fuck in that bikini-like outfit she wears throughout the game. Yeah, it was pretty much designed to get cocks hard, but who the fuck cares? XBlades can be tough to play. XBlades can be tough to play at times, but if you stick with it, you'll actually have a lot of fun with the game. Alright, coming up next is From Russia with Love. As a fan of classic 007, this should come as no surprise. I really enjoyed the movie From Russia with Love, but the game on its own is actually a pretty fun game. It has pretty fucking good gameplay and level design. You actually get a decent variety of weapons in addition to the classic pistol James Bond uses. You also get a revolver and an SMG. You also get a revolver, an SMG, an assault rifle, and even a shotgun. These are all fucking nice touches. There are also a shit ton of explosions in the game, and you can even perform Bond moments, which are different for each level. I even thought the driving sections were fun. They were much better than the fucking driving stages in Bloodstone. The car has guns on the front of it, which is goddamn awesome. As an adaptation of the movie, I thought it captured the story beats pretty well. I even like the shit that they added in specifically for the game. A good adaptation is not just about following the story beat for beat, but transcribing it for a new medium. That is exactly what the game From Russia with Love does. Okay, the last game that is on my list is going to be Shadow the Hedgehog. Well, this list is not exactly conventional, seeing how I started it with a relatively obscure choice, and now ending it with probably the most controversial choice. I loved this game as a kid, and I still love it to this day. Maybe even more now. A lot of people say that the controls are bad, and I honestly don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I seriously had no problem with them. And even if I did, it did not take that long to get used to. Shadow the Hedgehog is special because I fucking love the character. I fucking loved the character, and I still do. But also, the game really got me into hardcore shooter games with cussing. If you get right down to it, the shooting is really fucking good in this game. There are many types of weapons. There are many types of guns and lasers to use. Sure, the cannons are only really useful when aiming the reticle directly at the enemy, but that's not always frustrating to do. I also like how it mixes in the platforming elements of the other Sonic games with a fucking hardcore shooter atmosphere. It gives this game a very unique identity. I also like the levels. There are a mix of dark and urban levels and colorful and psychedelic levels. There are a ton of fucking fun to play. I even like finding the 5 keys to open secret doors. It's just a fun little bonus. However, the only things I don't like are, first off, most of the bosses aren't that good. And second of all, I don't care for the fact that the story mode, in story mode, you can only play 6 levels at a time. To unlock the other levels, you have to do certain missions. It is pretty annoying and makes the story incoherent. If you get to a level you already unlocked, they don't even change the cutscenes. It would have been better if they just had all 22 levels together as a full story, but despite those 2 flaws, Shadow the Hedgehog is still a damn good game, with great music that actually sparked my interest in hard rock and electronic rock. It is underrated and probably the last good Sonic game before Sonic 06 came out. So yeah, I love Shadow the Hedgehog. Yep, that was my list of video games. I hope you enjoyed this very long video. I'm Spike Robot. Thank you for watching, and if you did, by all means subscribe. See you later. Support our troops.